Hi, hello, and welcome back to Complementary Colors, a show that goes into depth about what happens behind the scenes in the world of commercial interior design. My name is Casey Key, and I'm here today with Cara.
Hello.
And Melissa.
Hello.
And I think we just need to dive right into our topic today.
Let's do it, Casey.
It is something near and dear to all of our hearts. Undervalued and unappreciated, as we might call it, confronting the my wife does that syndrome.
Ouch.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
No, I don't think any of us have ever heard that in regards to interior design. So I guess I want to start with just flat out, has this ever happened to you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes.
By the same person even multiple times. I was like, man, I didn't redirect that messaging.
Active listening skills.
Does it happen often, would you say?
Yes, I would say so.
So on a scale of like 1 to 10, if you have 10 interactions with people.
9.9.
9.9.
We're talking about people that we're not actively working with. We're talking about that first
Correct.
approach, that first...
You're talking to a stranger on the plane.
Absolutely.
They ask you what you do. Do you ever try to cut it off really quick and say, I do commercial interior design, which is not pillows? That's something I do. Like, do you ever try to cut it off before they can even like say that?
Sometimes. I think it depends on my mood.
I don't think I've ever like backed down
confrontational.
from like the moment though. I used to just, when I was asked what I do, I would say interior architecture. And I'm sorry, my fellow interior designers, I was not helping us. I was just trying to avoid a long-winded conversation about decor or oh my gosh, I need to have you over to my house.
Yeah, I have to say, even on work sites, when we go out there, being recognized and called the architect makes me smile. So thank you, but I am the interior designer.
I think
Glad to be here.
I think you need to share one story before we really dive in, Melissa, though. There was a particular name that you were given on one project that I think would be really fun to share if you remember. It had to do with furniture.
Oh, the furniture fairy?
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck? Good story. Yeah, so in the commercial world of interior design, government is a big sector of what we do. And I flew up to one of the bases in Fairbanks, Alaska, and we were sitting in a charrette, of which, I got a sidebar meeting of 30 minutes with the user group sitting there for 9 hours listening to everybody else talk over me. However, when you're an army dude and you've got ammo tattooed on your knuckles and you say you want pink, and
the stereotypes are rich
for
in this
being such a
episode.
Great magical furniture fairy. I was like, anytime I will be your magical furniture fairy. Anytime.
I mean, what a title. I think you should put that on your resume.
I've used it a lot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, okay. So is there like something off the top of the head that you guys feel like this perception comes from?
Yes. I think the instinct of female nesting, picturing that, infomercial of the 50s housewife, right? Like,
Demoing the newest and greatest refrigerator.
But I would say, just looking at our industry, there's a lot of baby boomers. And so whether it's been baked into the stereotypes in cinema, or if it's life experience from that generation that we're typically talking about, that 50s plus that we interact with in our industry that could look at us more so as, children in comparison. I think that they're not even trying to be insulting. It's just part of the picture that they've painted for years. And so, it's kind of turned the homemaker versus the provider into, well, I guess females are all nesters.
Yeah, and to add on that, because I know you'll probably go into some history about how young we are anyways, but HGTV did not do us any credit.
God. No, it's, I think, my least favorite thing.
Not to say I don't watch HGTV. I will raise my hand. I will watch some shows. I definitely got excited, but that's not what commercial interior design does. And so I think that's not helpful when we are in the position that we are today, trying to explain what commercial interior design is.
Yeah, I think my personal beef with HGTV is every time I see them do like a rendering walkthrough, and I won't name the show that does it, but there is one that always shows their client a rendering walkthrough. I'm like, You didn't do that. You made it seem like you did that overnight, but I know how long that takes.
Exactly. Liar.
You are lying to this client. But anyway, obviously there's a lot of like psychological misperceptions, a lot of generational misperceptions, but as a career, we're really young. And I think it's shocking how young we are.
We're babies.
The roots of design as a profession actually started as interior decorators, which it's hard to admit that that's where we started from because we hate that term so much, at least me personally. But really, it was in the early 1900s that it was Elsie D. Wolfe. She was the first Miss Wolfe. She was the first recognized interior decorator to actually have a paid commission for her work. And she was a firecracker. Have you guys ever like researched her at all?
Our history class.
I mean, yeah.
I had to.
I know they're looking at me because I'm looking at them blankly just for
Who's Miss Wolf?
So Elsie de Wolfe, she was the daughter.
Tell me more.
She was the only child of a doctor from Canada. And she went away to boarding school in like her teen
This all
years.
seems very first world. Of
I know.
course, it would be born from like, we got it, so we're okay. Continue. I just am aware.
I mean, she went away to boarding school. She was born in like 1889 or something like that. And she came back as a young teenager, and her parents had redone their home in like the chicest fashion at the time, which was Victorian, which was, as we all know, lots of heavy brocades, lots of like over designing, very small, dark rooms. And she apparently, as a child, like threw herself on the floor, was so upset about it. And she just screamed over and over again, "It's so ugly. It's so ugly."
Aww.
And like, she had this passion, and she started to actually have a lot of following because of that, because she was in high society. She had a marriage of convenience to someone who was knighted, and she just got into really good with high society. And so people started hiring her. So
do we feel, and I guess Wikipedia wise, this is where our industry was born? Because I'm like, is this where it was
This
born?
isn't textbook, girl.
this is the first paid interior
This is
decorator.
the problem. No offense, like rest in peace. But that's probably the problem if our roots are in that.
But like,
Continue
she's
on.
inspiring in her own right, even though she
Trailblazer.
Like, think about it. In 1912, when women didn't have professions, she was also a very flagrant lesbian. She lived with her lesbian lover, like very openly.
I'm liking her more.
Exactly.
But I would just say that I feel like maybe it was rooted in, the same way landscape architecture has found its place, is that it is too fast and too furious. Sorry. That the industry needed to splinter off into specialty.
So, but this is the first splintering off of that, is like, no longer is it just whoever's building the building gets to say what goes in there. It's they hired someone. And then, of course, after Elsie D. Wolfe, we have Dorothy Draper, who also was arguably started the first interior design firm.
With her husband.
No, it was actually without her husband. She and her husband were the first house flippers. But then her firm was...
So the first recognized woman, because we all know the Corbusier chaise lounge was not designed. So you mean the first recognized woman?
Arguably. There's a little bit of a gray line between there. Hence she obviously did this with her husband's blessing. This is in the 1930s.
I only joke because we couldn't own property as women until 1974.
Sure.
So
yes. So was her husband's name on it? Absolutely. But like, she obviously led to that part. Her husband was kind of her like payroll, would sign things.
we always love that.
But she was the first like actual design firm. She did a lot of more decorating. She did very notable things that we would recognize to this day. She was infamous for using cabbage rose patterns, all those
cabbage
things.
rose.
But the one fun thing that I really appreciate about both of these women is they were firecrackers. They didn't let the industry define them. They didn't let the world define them. And for instance, Elsie de Wolfe was quoted by, "I opened the doors and windows of America and let the air and sunshine in," because she was so sick of how dark the Victorian era was. And then Dorothy Draper, she wrote a column in the 1930s, and her advice to one person was, go ahead and paint that door red if that's what makes you happy. And she was like definitely like an advocate for using
self-expression.
Yes, exactly.
So I love that.
But our roots do go to interior decorating. But the first time that the term interior design was actually used was in a magazine in 1912. And that was one of the first times that it was called design, not decorating, even though our four founding mothers, if you will, were decorators.
Yep.
But the first time that legislation was ever passed was about interior design was in Alabama in 1982.
Yes, that sounds about right.
I feel the plantation.
Or just the 80s.
But shocking, interior design has only been recognized by the federal or state government since 1982.
Yeah, I think that's
Hey, you guys,
a
when I
funny
was
fun
born,
fact.
I felt like they knew I was coming. They were
They're
like,
like, the world needs to be ready.
they're ready for her.
It also shows and shines light about why we get asked this question a lot. I mean,
Absolutely.
if we're realistic, if it's under 40 years, it's even been talked about in the U.S. as an actual profession. We've got some work to do. It's kind of interesting, even just with the fun fact that I said about 1974. Like, did you know that? Did you know that?
Vaguely. And I knew it was in the 70s, but the fact you're like, it's 1974, I was very impressed.
I was just like, my mom was 22. Like, until she was 22, she can open her own personal bank account. Like, that's my
I'm
mom's
sorry.
era.
We're about to hit on a topic where I'm like, wait, it's 2023 and we still don't have control over our bodies everywhere. So let's just
that's
not go
another
there.
topic.
I'm just saying that, like, I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked.
Well, I guess my point was the fact that if that's happened in my parents' lifetime and it's taken me some movies and some cultural enlightening to really have that click, it's clicking again for our profession. So we're almost doing the same trailblazing that our fellow firecrackers, as Casey said, in the early 1900s as we are now for the actual profession of interior design.
So with that being said, what are things that like we can glean from our matriarchs, if you will, of the design profession, and what things are you're like, I want this to go away and never come back, and I want the, project what you want the career to be.
What do you want, Cara?
I'm like, diversity. I think I want that spirit, that original spirit, obviously I can equate to. There is, in all innovation, there's that awkward, there's that push through moment. There's that, man, like new, fresh air. So even hearing their quotes, it's like, there's not a lot of difference here between the society that they roamed and the one that we roam. I would say if we could refocus, though, and be known in this generation for design theory and material chemistry and code compliance and safety and welfare and, being able to understand all of the systems that our designs are, we have to know engineering. We have to know architecture. We have to know all of these things in order to break the boundaries in our own field because we are so coordinated and intermingled within a structure. So if we could be known for being so deeply rooted in those details and those things that affect human safety and life wellness, then I think the generations sitting at this table will hopefully be talked about later as more than firecrackers, but as intellectuals that really open the minds of the masses.
Brilliantly said.
Yeah. How do you follow that?
Cara with her hissing. That's a
stop.
classic.
Yeah, I just echo a lot of what Cara said and just sum it up to the fact that our profession is such an onion, right? It's got layers that we really do need to peel back. And there is an order to which that has to be peeled back unless you just literally want to cut it in half, right? Like we have to educate people to push the boundary to keep that next layer coming in the right form. So I really think that we just have to be persistent and positive and really back the science that Cara was talking about to make sure that what we do is safe and feels good. Like we know it feels good. So we just need to put science on why.
To ask what seems to us a dumb question, but not all the world knows it, is there science to interior design? Is there testing to interior design? Is that something that we have to go through?
Absolutely.
No.
No, we just look at a curtain and say, that's the one.
But I don't think people understand the biological connection and the psychological connection of the sandbox we play in.
Yeah.
We play in a sandbox. I remember because it was probably one of those first color theory moments of my life because I started in the industry when everyone was begging for eating areas, whether that's a dining room or break room, to have a red wall. It was like this weird fad 20 years ago. Let's be frank that they all talked about
And
red.
roosters.
And then, there's reasons why these drunk tanks are painted baby blue and Pepto-Bismol pink. Like there is a biological response that your body has. Like you literally salivate, your tongue will start to salivate when you see those deep, rich, warm colors like red. And so I think people thought it was a trend, but it was really a biological response that is part of our tools in our sandbox that we play with. We don't talk
One that
about,
took it
but
too
we got
far.
them. Right. It took it, but one example of many where it is backed by science or design theory.
Yeah, there's a reason why I minored in psychology in school for a reason. And there's also another reason because I'm educated to not do residential. Nothing against you if you're a residential designer, but
You're stronger than us.
you've
Yeah.
got guts. Yeah,
We always joke that you need to be a marriage counselor in order to do residential design.
you do.
So that's too much.
That's another topic too. Anyways, but I really think that the science that we've got, what we coin in our industry is evidence-based design, is something that the last decade at least has been widely pushed by a lot of our professional societies to really invest in the why, both from a sociology point of view of, just what we gravitate towards, to psychology, what we think about. There's a reason why something feels good.
Honestly,
A science reason.
yeah, there's always a science reason.
Oh, and funny story, I was able to go to, I think it was a classroom of 6th graders, 5th graders.
Oh, I'm excited. Keep going.
And they're like, we just want you to come in and talk about your career. And I was like, absolutely. And they were like, pillows, paints. And I was like, well, actually in school, I got to burn fabric. And they're like, what? And I was like, yeah, I did.
Every kid's dream.
Right?
Why did you burn fabric?
So that I could see how fire treated and unfire treated and different materials burn and the quickness of that.
I know if people only knew how much we talked about like flame spread and, either.
Class A, Class B.
Right. Constant.
Yeah.
I think jumping to our next topic, that's actually the part that bit me in the butt at when I was taking the NCIDQ test, because
NCIDQ test.
I learned from a residential designer in my schooling, and we didn't touch on those things. We touched on a little bit of psychology, but I didn't have that really great commercial base. So it's been a steep learning curve.
ASTM, like there was no numbers in your mind. Yeah.
It was rough.
I'll give you my kit.
Honestly, please. But for those who don't know what the NCIDQ is, it is our really amazing 3-part test that we have to take as interior designers. And funny enough, guess when it was founded?
82.
Nope, 1974. Same year women that could
Good
get property.
one.
Wow.
Good one.
Some good things were happening. It was not recognized federally, but it was a test that you could take to prove that you had the education that was needed to be a commercial interior designer and learn things like fire code. And
I love it.
I would like to just let everyone know that it is recognized federally.
it is
So
now.
even,
Yes.
yeah, just for those that might
In the
not be
80s.
as familiar with it, that it is federally recognized. So some of the most technical facilities that are built for our nation's protection, all of the Department of Defense projects, you do have a NCIDQ, a certified interior designer on those projects. So, I feel so awkward to say snaps for the federal government. Has that ever happened?
But they're doing good things. The NCIDQ is the proof that we know what we're doing and that we're protecting people with our knowledge, which is leading to our next point. Is you touched on the fact that the federal government recognizes it, and you talked about legislation earlier. What's going on in the Alaska state legislature and multiple states around the country right now in regards to health and safety and protecting our population?
It's going to feel like I'm digressing, and I'm not.
Please digress.
Have you ever gotten your nails done by a nail tech?
Mm-hmm.
Hairdresser.
Any of those people are recognized by a state license, and they cannot practice because they affect your well-being, your welfare. And the state is making sure that you are protected, whatever state that you dwell in. And not all states are actually checking to see if interior design work is being regulated by or really being created by educated professionals. So that gray line starts to create, to be honest, an unsafe environment for the public. So in summation of that analogy, that we are looking for that same respect, but also just to join the rest of our colleagues that sometimes, even in the design profession, we lead. We lead teams of engineers, of architects. we are a part of this team of recognized professionals. And what we are asking is that we would be recognized along with them on how we do affect the life safety and welfare of our public people.
We touch a little bit of everything, whether it's our responsibility or not. It's our responsibility to know what we're touching. So we have our hands in probably like 6 spots at the same time. So yeah, we're kind of in the firecracker zone right now for legislator personally in the state of Alaska, following a lot of footsteps in other states, trying to get recognized by the state to be a licensed profession. So we're in the midst of doing that. In 2023, hopefully 2024, I can give you a better update. But we're having fun.
It's been spicy.
So much fun.
But long story short, we all feel very passionately that this is not only good for our Alaska population, this is good for the government at large, as Cara was talking about earlier. The federal government literally requires us to be tested and qualified and like registered in a nutshell in order to work with them, to work on the most technical facilities, the most secure facilities out there. So why would we not encourage that, even if it's
For the general
a
populace,
boba shop? If it's
Right.
if it's a boutique, it should be safe. If it is someone's school, it should be safe. And you should know beyond a shadow of a doubt that your designer knows their stuff and is able to back it up with science and the education that they've spent a lot of time and money investing in.
That's right.
I challenge you the next time you go to a urgent care or healthcare facility and you see that if they're not Clorox wipes, I'm going to clarify, they're not Clorox wipes, but they're in that tied up container. They have a purple lid. And if you turn it around, there is a baby on the back of it with a circle and a cross through it saying, do not let your baby touch these. That's what they clean things with, right? They want to take and kill all of that bad bacteria and all the germs and everything like that. Well, if you don't specify the right stuff to be cleaned with that,
It
you're
disintegrates.
just disintegrating it and cracking it. And
then
who knows
all
what
of a
lives inside
sudden,
that.
your germ layer is soaking in a lot of toxins
Don't touch
that
it.
actually are bioaccumulative that we cannot get rid of, and they affect your endocrine system. I'm digressing, but obviously
You're
there's
not passionate about this at
there
all.
is science behind what we do, and we do it on purpose to not just create wellness, but to create protection.
A couple states just passed some registration, I believe Illinois and Nevada.
Nevada has been our tried and true.
Oh, that's right.
Go Las Vegas. There's a reason for that. They touch a lot of people's lives. But if you want to learn more, there's lots of different places you can find that. I know that you can go to our Alaska ASID website to find some information, but I really encourage you to actually go to CIDQ, which is our registration site, which shows you everything that we do and why we should be registered, all of the credentials we hit. And then NCARB, which is the company that certifies architects. They put out a really great joint report on combining or looking at basically the architect test and the interior design test and showing the comparisons.
So to bring this all together, and we talked about a lot of different like science-based things. We talked about some history that, sorry if I bored anyone listening, but
I learned something. I did. That's embarrassing, but I really did. Thank you.
we need to know about our matriarchs. But if you could put one thing out there into the ether, you could like immediately be embedded in everyone's brain. They would all know this about interior design, and that what they would take away from this conversation. What's the one thing that you would want the world to know about interior design? Melissa?
We're educated professionals.
Ooh.
Period.
Hot take. So we're not just picking out pillows and paint colors, even though we do like those things.
There's a talent, and it's an innate talent sometimes. You're born with it. Some people can't. Some people are colorblind. I mean, it's just one of those things that sometimes that creative brain is a gift to an extent, but the education portion and the evidence-based design that comes after that, that's true dedication.
I think I would just want to highlight the importance of what we're doing and what future generations will do. I would just urge you to think about how much time you spend inside a structure. And when you are inside that structure, are you really concerned with what the exterior of that structure feels like? And so if you're sitting in the structure, and maybe scientifically I'll just cue in that 96% of your life is probably spent inside, that there is someone responsible for those choices. and that you want the person responsible for those choices to be educated and thinking about all the different angles that it will make your life better.
Yeah, being your advocate.
Absolutely. So I would just say the importance of this comes from just knowing how much of your whole life will be affected by it.
We don't tell you where to go, when to go it, and when to do it. Nope. We don't do that.
Very subtle.
We don't affect your psychology by
we're
the
not
volumes
creepy.
of space
We just
or
build
lack
it into
of.
the building and all. It's wayfinding, it's deep psychology embedded in the floor. So what would you
feels
say?
evil. We're like,
I know. we control your brain.
But we really do.
That's the power. And, it's with what's that Spider-Man quote? With great power comes great responsibility.
That's true.
Is that Spider-Man? I thought that was like a president.
Nope, that's in fact Spider-Man.
It's all good.
Oh my gosh.
So we have this incredible power to work with people's psychology, to work on buildings, to be that middleman that Melissa was talking about. And so it's our responsibility to walk into those situations educated, being armed with data, being armed with our client in mind, and the wellness aspect of whoever we're serving.
I also had to add, education is nothing without action. So we can educate ourselves all day long, but if we don't take that brave step to advocate for what we're doing,
Implement. Yeah.
then it's not going to go as fast as we want it to. So be brave.
What would you say to those people who says, my wife does that? What would be your response, your advice for someone who comes across that, who's
Usually I start with humor. I'm like, oh my gosh, your wife went and got a bachelor's degree and was tested and had 6 years of
humor.
experience before. And I kind of like, and then I'm like,
that's more like digging the knife
amazing.
in and twisting it.
Okay, it's my dark humor. But usually, if I am in a less offensive mood, I just reference work that I know they've experienced. I'm like, have you been through the Anchorage airport? Have you been to the Anchorage Museum? Where does your kid go to school? Oh my gosh, I designed that school. And you just kind of bring to light that the spaces that we are actually impacting have nothing to do with us showing up and giving them like house decor advice.
I think the only thing that I have to remind myself when I get this question is that we are young, right? So take the time, give that educational bit, and hopefully that seed is planted so the next time I'm with them specifically and I get asked that question by someone new, I've got an advocate for myself. So spreading the word definitely helps plant those seeds.
Turn it into a teaching moment.
It's beautiful.
Teaching moments.
Beautiful.
I don't think I can add to that. That was really well said.
It was.
Well, we thank everyone for listening to this conversation. I know we touched on some sensitive subjects. We touched on some things that people don't always like hearing. We learned a little, and we hopefully filled you with some information that you can take away and help educate other people when you come across this in your profession or in your world. Again, I'm Casey Key, and this is our Complementary Colors podcast, and we have our lovely Cara and Melissa as our brains behind the brilliance, and we hope that you'll join us next time.
Thanks, Casey.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Complementary Colors is a production of MCG Explore Design, an architecture and interior design firm located in beautiful Anchorage, Alaska. If you'd like to hear more future episodes, be sure to subscribe to Complementary Colors wherever you find podcasts.